Welcome to the Inconceivably Connected Podcast. I'm your host and fellow donor-conceived person, Nick Ludwig. This is episode 1, the beginning of a series that I hope will shine light on the stories and experiences of other donor-conceived people, many of whom have had their discoveries come at later stages in life. For those of you who don't know me, I myself discovered I'm donor-conceived when I was 36 years old. It was the shock of my life, and I even wrote a book about it. As my family and I continue on this most unexpected journey of new biological origins, previously unknown half-siblings, and dissecting what comes from nature or nurture, one thing presented itself most clearly. Talking openly about everything had the most positive impact. That made me think, what if I could help others do that too? In this week's episode, you'll hear from a woman named Shavonne who lives in the state of Florida. She's in her 40s, and her donor-conceived story is technically over 7 years in the making, but only fully unwrapped itself a little over a year ago. It is one that is complex, layered, and ever-evolving. Before each conversation, I tell each guest to imagine sitting around a campfire with people they've never met before, all of whom are eager for a compelling story. This one you are about to hear is Shavonne's.
Okay, so my name is Shavonne, and I am a donor-conceived person. My discovery came a little over a year ago, so this is still kind of feeling fresh and new for me in some ways, and in some other ways it is kind of is really part of my identity now. At the beginning, I think I thought about it constantly and every day, and now there are some days where I don't think about it, and some days I still think about it all day long. Okay, so I'll back up about 10-15 years. I started doing research into my genealogy. I'm a big history geek. I just love research. So I started tracing back my family history through Ancestry, and I really got into it. I was able to trace my family back to the Mayflower, which was really exciting. And I even started a blog talking about different interesting individuals I found in my family tree, people who fought on both sides of the American Revolution, and people who stowed away on ships to come here from Denmark. Just really interesting individuals in my family tree. And so, 7 or 8 years ago, I guess, when the DNA tests started to be pretty easily accessible, one of my cousins had done one, and she showed me her results, and I thought, oh, that looks fun. So I decided to do one just to kind of support the research I've done to make sure that, yes, we're really from this part of Europe, or, you know, our family really does have roots in this part of the country. And I did that, and at first, there was nothing really shocking about the background, you know, the origins being from Germany or England, and so that wasn't shocking. But what was really surprising was I didn't recognize any names on what I assumed was my father's side. I saw all my mother's side cousins that I knew, and I could say, yes, I know that person, I recognize that name, or I recognize that surname. But all these names kept popping up, and surnames that I didn't recognize, and I didn't see my last name at all. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. And I questioned my parents about that, like, who are these people? And they shrugged their shoulders. I don't know who those people are. Now, I don't know if they got together and decided to come up with a we know nothing kind of backstory as part of their answer, because they had to know. They knew I was taking a DNA test. They never gave me any kind of heads up. You're going to find some surprising results, or you're going to find results that you're not expecting. They also never gave me a straight answer of who these people are. I'm sure they don't know exactly who these people are, but they knew why those people were showing up. But they never told me anything. So 7 years went by, of me just like thinking about this. Everyone, especially when I would dive into get back into like the ancestry research, or I'd get a new DNA match, I would be like, oh, this again. So who are these? And so I would just really rack my brain about what are all the possibilities? Who could these people be? And I went through like, oh, my dad must have a love child. But that didn't really match up, because if my dad had a love child, I would still see his name showing up, my last name. And then I thought, well, my mom must have had an affair. Oh my gosh, how do I confront her about this? And do I even confront her? Do I just kind of act like, okay, this will be my secret that I carry, on my mom's behalf? But that also didn't really pan out. Like, it just really didn't make a lot of sense, given a lot of the information of people who I was matching with. And slowly, those people also reached out to me like, who are you? Why are you showing up in our family tree? And I could honestly tell them, I have no idea. Let's figure this out together. And it wasn't until, now this is where it gets a little, like, you have to connect dots to really understand. My dad had been married before and had a family, and then got divorced and had a family with my mom. So I was raised knowing I had half siblings. I had half siblings and a brother who I was raised with from my dad's marriage with my mom. So a niece from my dad's first marriage, which would be his granddaughter from his first marriage, and would have been like my half niece, if you can follow the logic here. She also did a DNA test, and we didn't match at all. So that told me, I said, well, one thing's for certain, you are related to my dad and I am not. So what's going on here? And she took it on herself to accuse my mom of having an affair. This thing that I had been thinking for several years, and just kind of, I didn't want to go to that conclusion. She just jumped right there and called my mom out on it right away. And of course, then I think my mom felt backed into a corner, and said, okay, I'll talk to Shavonne, and if Shavonne wants to share the story, then she can. So my mom finally, after 7 years, called me and told me, well, here's what happened. After your dad's first marriage, at some point he had a vasectomy and it wasn't reversible, and we got married not wanting to have kids, but she changed her mind at some point and wanted to have kids. So that was the route that they decided to go, was to use a donor. And so I was just kind of, it's funny because at one point when I didn't know the truth, someone had commented to me, I had posted in some, different groups about what could all this mean. And someone suggested you could be donor conceived. And I thought, they would have told me that. Like, that's not a big deal. Why would they keep that from me? So I kind of just dismissed it. And I look back and I'm like, that was the most obvious thing. And yet I dismissed it because, of course, my parents would have told me that, right? And I had asked her, why didn't you tell me? And she said, well, several reasons. The doctors said not to. Like, back then, the doctor's advice was, don't tell your kids. They're never going to know anyway, and it doesn't matter. And that was her reasoning for not telling me. And she said, I really don't understand why you need to know this. Why does it matter? And I said, it's part of my identity. It's who I am, and I deserve to know where I come from. And besides that, there's the health issue. Like, don't I deserve to know if I am in line to have some horrible disease? I should know, I should be able to take precautions for it. And she thought that was a good answer. And I said, you knew I took a DNA test, and like, what did you think was going to happen? And she said, this still astonishes me that she said this. She said, I just hoped it would go away. And I was like, Mom, it's DNA. It doesn't go away. It doesn't lie. Like, you even gaslit me to tell me, like, oh, maybe there was a mistake with the test. Like, it's DNA. It doesn't lie. Mm-hmm. So it was surprising. It was really shocking to find that out. And it all happened, around the holidays. So I was honestly ready to just cancel all my holiday plans, but I didn't. I went on. And the other thing was, she asked me not to speak to my father about it because he's advanced in years. His health isn't so great. And she thinks it would upset him too much. I don't know if that's true. I would love to talk to him about it. I would love to tell him, like, it's okay. I love you regardless. And I think that was really selfless that you did this, that you chose to raise a family in this way. But I don't know if it would upset him to know that I've found out. I really don't. And is it worth taking the chance because of his health? And beyond that, my brother doesn't even know that we're not full siblings, and that breaks my heart. And he should know. I've told my mom, like, you need to tell him. He should know. And she says she won't. Again, it doesn't matter. And I told her.
So your desire to share this information with your father and your brother, for now, is it fair to say that is outweighed by your mother's desire to keep it hush hush?
Yes. And I think because it's so new, I'm still trying to work it all out in my head. I did tell her, if by the point you and Dad are no longer on this earth and you haven't told him, then I will tell him. And she said, well, that's fair enough. But I even think, I don't know. I don't know. It's just a horrible thing to think about. I think he deserves to know. I don't want to be the one to tell him, honestly, because I know how it really, once I had time to really start thinking about it, it really does matter. It really, who your parents are is part of your identity. And I remember just staring in the mirror after I found out and just being like, I don't recognize half of who I am. Half of who I am is from a stranger. And it was just such a weird feeling for a while. I really had just moments of identity crisis. It was such a shock. And the response I hate most getting from people if I share is, oh, well, he's still your dad. Of course he's still my dad. It doesn't change how I feel. But I think people make comments to make themselves feel better because it's such an unusual situation. They don't really know how to respond, and they feel like they have to say something, but that's not the best way to respond. But I'd say at this point, my trust in my parents is just gone completely. I understand why they didn't share it with me. I totally get that. But they had opportunities to tell me when I questioned them. There were, and I look back on other conversations where I'm like, wow, that would have been a perfect time to tell me. And they didn't. And some of their responses to conversations we've had, I'm like, wow, that makes so much more sense now in light of this. But it's, if they kept that from me when I ask them specific questions, and I see it as a lie. It's a lie of omission. And also the whole shrugging their shoulders. Oh, we don't know. Must be faulty test. That's a lie to me. So if they've lied to me and kept that from me, what else are they lying about or have they kept from me? And how they're my parents. I'm supposed to trust them more than anyone in the world. And I'm supposed to trust that they have my best, they're looking out for me. They want to protect me. And maybe they saw this as a way to protect me. But I see it as they saw me walking towards this cliff, and rather than telling me there's a cliff in front of you, you're going to walk off of it, they just hoped the cliff would disappear. And Yeah. So my trust, I have some serious trust issues now, especially with my parents. But I think in general, I've noticed I have a lot of trust issues in all my relationships now.
Mm-hmm. Well, was that difficulty in trusting your parents? Was that something that you felt in the moment when you kind of realized the truth of the matter? Or is that something that kind of slowly built itself, increasingly more and more as you were sitting with the information?
Yeah, it's built up. It wasn't immediate. I would say like for the first probably honestly 2 months or so, I was just kind of in a fog. I had, life goes on. It was the holidays, and then I got back from the holidays and I moved. And so, moving takes like so much energy. And just I'd say for a good 2 months, it was just kind of like it was in the back of my mind, but I didn't really pay much attention to it. And it wasn't until life kind of got back to normal that I really started thinking about it and having a hard time with it. And then me being a research junkie, I started diving into the world of donor conception and finding support groups and finding information on how to process this really. And what do I want to know? Do I want to know about my donor? Do I want to know? And what's funny is it never occurred to me that I might even have donor siblings. What was most important to me finding out was if there were any health issues I should be aware of. So I started, along with all the research into the donor world, I started, again, reaching out to those DNA matches that we had been speaking and like, oh, this is such a mystery. Let's figure this out. And they were very open to communicating. And then once I shared with them like, oh, hey, so I know how we're related now. It's a donor. And I, even though I had figured out who the donor is, I found the person's name and I was able to locate him. I didn't want to out him to his family. I don't know if that sounds really weird, but I kind of laid out some breadcrumbs for the family members they could figure it out. But once I said, I'm donor conceived from someone in your family who, from this time period would have lived in this place. And all I really wanted, I was like, I don't want anything from you. I don't need to talk to him. I just want to know from you, is there any kind of health problems or anything I should be aware of going forward, that would really put my mind at rest? I would never hear from them again. I have been ghosted by his family members so many times. And it's a form of rejection. It kind of hurts, but I have to laugh to myself because I'm imagining like the family get-togethers, what they've been like. Since they're like, oh, hey, this chick's been reaching out to me on Ancestry. Oh yeah, me too. She says there's a sperm donor in our family. And I wonder if they're like, shut that conversation down. But
to be a fly on the wall there, right?
Right.
Like
I'm sure
to see what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah, so it's interesting because he has like no social media presence. So it was a little let me tell you, the internet it's a scary place. You can find so much information, and thank goodness I have no nefarious, ideas, and it's all good. But I was able to find him pretty quick. There were some 3 a.m. rabbit holes that I would go down when I couldn't sleep, and I found a lot of information about him having no social media presence. But I was still able to find him, get a name, and I feel really weird reaching out to him just out of the blue and be like, hey, remember that thing you did so many years ago? Well, anyway, but his family members have all ghosted me. And so I did take it on myself to do the 23andMe test, which does do the health biomarkers. And I did that without even thinking that I might find different results, because it just never occurred to me, and it should have. I don't know. But I found some donor siblings through the 23andMe test, and thankfully I haven't found any kind of like health issues to be worried about. But yeah, I think finding these donor siblings has been kind of the silver lining in all of this. So far there's 4 of us total, and yeah, my 3 siblings are really great. They're all kind of in their own place on their journeys, and yeah, I hope we can all meet in person someday. So far, like, we're all spread across the country, which is really interesting. But we have like a group chat going on, and we talk from time to time. So that's been a really good surprise that I wasn't expecting. Yeah.
that was my next question, is how many half siblings are there? Have you met? Sounds like you have not, but have any of the other 3 met each other, or has nobody met?
So without going into too much detail about them, 2 of them are actually full siblings because their parents were able to use the same donor, which I think is really cool. And then there's me and 1 other. And so far there's 4 of us total, and we're hoping that's it, because I mean, we've all heard the stories of like 50, 60, 100, whatever donor siblings, and we're just like, wow, can you even imagine? It was so stressful just to meet and to try to bring everybody up to speed, because sometimes when you find a donor sibling, they have no idea that they're donor conceived, and like, how do you tell them that just like, I feel like I don't want to be the one to like turn your world upside down, but you deserve to know. And it's just such a weird situation.
So back to the donor himself, have you had any direct correspondence with him, or has it all been through his other family members?
Well, it's been very limited through his family members. Yeah, like I said, they've all kind of just ghosted me as soon as I tell them that I'm donor conceived. But what I will say is, through all the research, I've been able to find, I am not a stalker, I swear. I've been able to find his mailing address and phone number and email. I have, honestly, right now, I really don't have any desire to know him or to talk to him. I have some questions, maybe, but they're not burning questions. A couple of the donor siblings are more interested in contacting him, so I've passed that information along to them, and I said, if you want to contact him, here it is. I don't know if they will or how they will. One of them was like, I'm just going to show up at his door, and I'm like, okay, if that's what you want to do. I don't know, that seems pretty gutsy to me. But I don't know if they will. They seem to have a lot of just curiosity about it, I think. They're kind of curious about, like, my question is, what did you do with the money? I'm really curious about that. I've heard some interesting stories from other donor conceived people about what their biological father did with the money. So I guess that's interesting. I have a feeling he used it to go towards grad school. Other than that, I don't really know what I'd want to ask, because I feel like I've found all my questions that I got answered just by like searching the internet to find information about him. But they kind of want to know about, what are you interested in, and what did you like? I think he's retired now, so they want to ask, like, what was your line of work, and what kind of, I think they just want to know his personality and if they share any of his personality traits. But since I've seen what he looks like, I don't think I look anything like him. It's so weird. But a couple of my donor siblings, they're like, oh, I totally look like him. Not me. I don't think I look like him at all. They think they look like him, which is really funny. But anyway.
Yeah, it's fascinating how much photos can reveal, not just physically, but you can kind of read into what their energy is like, or, in my case, and I don't need to get too deep into it, but like, I can see photos that I look at them and I'm like, oh, I could see myself fitting in just perfectly with, the donor and his family and in the settings that he tends to find himself in. But I also think simply having the identity is really helpful for people in our situation, regardless of how much or how little we actually know. And I really feel for those who are kind of living a life of total mystery, where they don't even have a face or a name to attach their biological origins to. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad to hear you at least know who the donor is. I do want to ask you, just backtracking a little bit, with respect to your brother and the feelings that come up there with him not knowing these truths. Have you had engagement with your mom about how that whole angle fits into your life?
Yeah, so like I said, I really haven't talked to anyone in my family since it all came out. Like my mom and I had that one conversation, and after that I did call back my niece and tell her, like, okay, so here's the situation. I said, look, I'm not into keeping secrets because that's how we got here, and this is kind of a mess. I said, but I hope you'll understand that this is my story to tell, not yours. So please allow me to tell the story when I'm ready, and as I wrap my head around this whole thing. So as far as I know, she hasn't said anything to her mom. I really don't know. And yeah, that's a whole other issue, but I really don't know if she said anything to anyone. But she has checked in with me a couple times, like, how's it all going? How are you dealing with all of that? My mom, on the other hand, she did ask me one time, like maybe 2 weeks after she first told me, she said, so did you talk anymore about that thing? And I was like, that thing? You mean the very reason I exist? And I was like, no, I haven't talked anymore about it with anyone. And that's the last time she asked me about it. Yeah, so since then, my resentment, my trust has all been like shaky, and I've been, where do I even start with this? I've wanted to confront her, and our family is not good about having difficult conversations. If you haven't gleaned that from my story so far, that's one of the big things I've realized from, my whole life. Like, difficult conversations are swept under the rug in the hopes they will just go away. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of interesting. Like, thank goodness I majored in psychology. It's all becoming very clear, But yeah, so I do want to bring it up again. I do want to tell my mom, like, this has not been easy. This is not something that's just going to go away. It's part of my identity, and I really do have trust issues with you and Dad because of this, and you should know that. And furthermore, you should tell my brother, like, he deserves to know. So all these things I've wanted to tell her, and I start writing it all down, and it just devolves into like so much anger, and I'm like, okay, I need to write it out, get all my anger out, and then come back to it at a time when I can get my feelings out without so much anger. So here we are, it's over a year later, and I'm still, honestly, right now I just don't have the time. I'm so busy. But it is something I've kind of put on the back burner, and I know it's affecting me without really thinking about it. I know it's there. I know it's affecting me. I know I have this anger and hurt and just resentment, honestly, just continuing to grow, and I need to do something about it. And I think the best way to deal with it with my own mom is to send her a letter and let her, if she wants to reach out to me and talk about it after that, I think that's the best way. But I do need to get all of that out and communicate that to her, because I think she deserves to know. Kind of, I'm sure she's noticed that I've kind of cut back on our relationship, that our relationship has changed. I really don't share with her anything anymore, and part of me is sad about that, but I don't feel like I can trust her right now. So, gosh, this feels like a therapy session.
Well, that's part of what I hope this can be for people who choose to have these kinds of conversations. I guess with some of this in mind, have you chosen to share your story with close friends, with other people in your life, or is this something that you kind of keep to yourself and have, sort of held on tightly to?
So yes to all of that. It's interesting because it's kind of like it's going through this evolving process, I think. When I first found out, I was like, I only told a few people who I was really like, I told my pastor because I was like, I don't know what to do with this. Please help guide me. So I told my pastor, and then I think I told my best friend who, I share everything with. And both of them were kind of like, whoa, like, I'm sure this is brand new territory for both of them. So, they both tried to be really supportive. And then I kind of was like, you know what, this isn't a secret. I'm just going to tell everyone who wants to know. And I started sharing it, and I got so many mixed reactions, and some were hurtful that I was like, okay, reel it back in. And I even, strangely, I had a job interview in the summer, and somehow it came out during the job interview. And because we were actually, the subject of like DNA testing came up, and I was like, well, if you do a DNA test, just be prepared. You may get surprise results. They say something like 10% of people who do DNA tests get a surprise. I think it's actually higher because I've had two, not related to donor conception at all, one of them, but I was just like, just be careful. You never know. You could have a surprise like I did. And they were like, oh, really? And then I just shared. I'm like, yeah, I'm donor conceived. I just found this out, and da-da-da. And after the interview, I was like, did I really say that?
It sounds like the story is almost bursting at the seams to come out, right? Like, I
got the job, so I guess it didn't hurt me to share. But
hey, honesty pays sometimes.
Yeah, I've kind of reeled it in. Again, I'm a little more cautious about who I share it with at this time. Mm-hmm. I'm not shouting it from the rooftops, but I'm also, I'm not going to shrink away from sharing my story if I feel like it's valuable. Sure. So I think that's a happy medium for now. We'll see how it goes. But I have to say, one of the experiences that I had was sharing with a friend, a good friend. I shared it with him pretty soon after I found out, and he was really like interested in asking a lot of questions and stuff. And just I want to say like maybe 2 months ago, he and I had lunch, and I was sharing with him like how it was really bothering me that the DNA matches were ghosting me. And he was like, well, what do you want from them? Like, he got kind of like combative about it. And I said, well, I just want to be acknowledged. I just want to be acknowledged that this is important to me. And like, if you're having a conversation with someone and they share information, and for whatever reason it makes you uncomfortable, don't just ghost them. Like, and I said, well, how would you respond in this situation? He's like, I do the same thing. I probably wouldn't talk to you. And it made me so mad at him. Like, I thought you were more considerate than that. I can't believe you, my friend, would respond that way. And we didn't get in a fight or anything, but I was just really surprised that that was his response, and that's how he would respond. Like, that was so natural, and that is just so contrary to how I would have responded. And in fact, as I kind of mentioned, I had something like that happen, where when I first took the DNA test, someone who I didn't know reached out to me and said, like, hey, I see we're connected. I'm looking for my birth father's family. And it turned out to be an uncle of mine who I knew and who I grew up with and I was raised. And I was happy to give her the information. I had no idea she existed. She was a love child my uncle had, but he never shared with us. And so I was like, well, I was in that situation where someone reached out to me looking for answers. And I gave them to her because I recognize that she deserves to know where she comes from. So for someone to just kind of write it off like it's not a big deal, I just was so surprised at my friend for saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, it may show that, on the other end of that message, there's a certain level of secrecy that exists in that family where, difficult truths are not something that they're necessarily equipped to handle in a healthy way. So they just choose to ignore it instead, which it sucks for the person who's reaching out and trying to make that connection. But it's the unfortunate reality that many of us have to deal with, which is why I want to be able to advocate on behalf of people who find themselves in this donor-conceived community and deal with any number of really difficult situations where, you may want contact with somebody and you can't get it. You may want certain information, you can't get it. All of these things feel like they can be resolved if we just made a few simple changes. I want to go back to how you discovered the donor. What kind of detective work was required, either through, on your end or your half siblings' end? Like, how did that all come about?
Well, I found him before I even did the 23andMe test and found out that I had donor siblings. So, yeah, it's really funny. So I'm sure Nick, you may be familiar with all of the DNA tests out there and how they differ. But the Ancestry DNA test, when you get matches, it doesn't really tell you how you're related. It just says like close match, possible first cousin, possible second cousin, so on. And it gives you the centimorgans that you share. And the higher the centimorgans, the closer relation you are. And there's this chart that breaks down all the centimorgans, and I think it just says CM on the Ancestry DNA, but there's this chart that breaks it down. Like if someone shares X amount of centimorgans, they're either like your parent or your child. If you share this amount, then they're your sibling. If they share this amount, then they're possibly an aunt or a half sibling or a niece. And it just kind of breaks it down from there. So it's on the user to kind of interpret who this connection could be based on like age. And, you have to kind of have to play detective if you're really going to get into it. So the person I had matched with on Ancestry shared enough centimorgans that she could either be my niece, my aunt, a half sister, or a grandmother. Now she was too young to be a grandmother. She was too old to be my niece. So that left like half sibling or aunt, which is why I thought, her being a half sibling would have made sense if my mom had an affair. Anyway, but it didn't make sense if my mom had an affair that I would be connected to her mom's side of the family. Yeah, I concluded that her what did I conclude? I wrote down this whole chart. I should go grab it because I kept it just to remind me of like how deep into this spiral I went without having questions. It was that she and my dad share a maternal match. That's what I had concluded based on all the research I had done. Her and my biological father shared a maternal match. So that's why I was like, but my mom couldn't have had an affair because my mom's my mom and the DNA is showing my mom's my mom. And the DNA is not showing that my mom's her mom. It's showing that her mom is someone else. So that's how I kind of was like, but it doesn't make sense that my mom would have had an affair. So I didn't want to jump to that conclusion. Anyhow, it was either that she was my aunt or my half-sister. And it was so funny because I never even thought oh, of course she's my aunt. And it just hit me one day. I'm like, oh yes, that's it. Of course she is my aunt. So therefore she's the sister of the donor. So I was able to go by her name and searching searching social media to see if her brother was on social media, and I found no evidence that anybody who seemed to be her brother was on social media. What I found, the one thing that cracked the case open was I found an obituary for her dad. She was listed in as the survived by, it says survived by his children. She was listed as one of his children, and it listed all the children. There were only 3 children, another sister, and then the brother, the donor. Mm-hmm. That's how I got the name. That's what broke it wide open. And from there, I was able to, I'm not going to say his name, but he has a very common name, like John Smith or something. So that tested my investigative skills even further, but I was able to find him and find the correct person, and just, like I said, lots of sleepless nights going down a deep rabbit hole, and you can search. I searched court records in order to find, if I wanted to find out, does he have his own family? Did he have kids that he raised? And I found that he has not had his own kids. He's been married a couple times, and from what I can tell, he doesn't have any children that he raised. And then I did hire a DNA angel to kind of confirm, because I thought, well, what if I'm wrong? What if I went wrong somewhere in my research and I've gone down the wrong path? I just want to make sure I'm right. And she was able to confirm, like, oh yeah, no, I found everything that you found is the same stuff I've found, and you're correct. But she also had access to some records that I can't access without paying for, or having memberships to certain societies and such. And she was able to, because my one question too was, well, what if there was another brother who wasn't mentioned in the obituary? Is it possible that he could be the donor? I mean, yeah, it's possible they could have had another brother that nobody knew about. So she was able to do some research and find out, like, all these birth records show there were only 3 children born to this family, the 2 daughters and the son. So the one son has to be your biological father. So unless there's some other weird switched at birth conspiracy, which we could unearth, but everything points to that this particular individual is the biological father.
Got it. I think everybody in the donor conceived community, to some degree, has the credentials to become a detective if they really wanted to. That could be a profession that I think we're all suited for.
Yeah.
So I know you have limited information and, photographic, evidence of the donor, but have you been able to kind of pull apart the nature versus nurture side of things with respect to the donor, and maybe, realize some commonalities that you might have with the half siblings that you discovered? Are there things that are in common between you and your half siblings that you can say, oh, all right, this is actually where this quality or this characteristic of mine comes from?
I don't know. I want to find that. I want to find some, like, oh yeah, we have that in common kind of thing. I've seen pictures of at least a couple of my donor siblings from when they were children, and oh my gosh, look so much alike as children. Now we share maybe some physical features, some common traits, but man, I tell you, our pictures as children, it's scary to see how much we looked alike as children. And what's really crazy, what's really just blew my mind for a while, and if I think about it too much, it still blows my mind, is that two of the donor sisters grew up very close to where I grew up. And I imagine that our paths crossed so many times, because the age range between, I'm the oldest one so far, which is really weird because I was raised as the youngest child in my family, but I'm the oldest of the donor siblings. Our age range is only like 3 years, I think.
Right. And I assume you all came from the same hospital?
Well, we all came from the same clinic.
Okay.
Yes. 3 of us were born in the same hospital. Again, my mom's not open to sharing information. I just know, even though I haven't asked her, I just know she won't share any information with me. I know her well enough. She won't share it. And she hasn't kept, I can guarantee you, she has not kept any records. And of course, I don't even know, I had to do my own research. I'm only assuming, based on time and location, which clinic my parents used, and because it was affiliated with the hospital I was born at. It's an assumption. I could be wrong, but I know where was I going? Okay, so I know my mom hasn't saved, there's no chance she saved any information, and if she remembers anything, she's not going to share it with me. The mother of one of the donor siblings, I've been able to ask her through them some of my questions, which has been kind of nice. 3 of us were born in the same hospital. I assume that means we were all conceived at the same clinic. Those clinics don't keep records past 10 years. And even if they did, I do not get them because I am not the patient. I cannot request those records.
Well, it's another level of the donor conceived person not having access to the things that should rightfully be theirs. Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I'm finding out all this information and then passing it along to my donor siblings, and they're just like, wow, you really are good at this research thing. So I share with them all these interesting things that I find, like, yeah, we're not the patient, that's our parents, they're the patients. But I think about having grown up, all like 3 of us having grown up in the same area, and the things that we did, I think they might have even gone to school with some of my cousins or something. I'm just like, that just blows my mind to think how many times our paths likely crossed.
Yeah. Similar situation over here. I have about a dozen half siblings, and we all came from the same hospital, and all grew up in Long Island.
Wow.
So we're sort of scattered around all the different towns over here, and there have been plenty of chances in the 38 years now that I've been on Earth for us to have crossed paths before we discovered what our actual relationship to each other was.
I kind of wish I had known them growing up. That would have been kind of fun, I just think like that would have been really neat to know them growing up and to know them as my half siblings. It would have been a thing. It wouldn't have been a big deal. I think I probably would have thought it was cool because I was kind of a loner kid, and I always felt like just out of place. And even my brother, who I was raised with, like, we don't have a good relationship. We're not very close, and we've never been close that I know of. It's always been like a strained relationship. And now I wonder, like, did we somehow subconsciously know this, and that's why our relationship is strained? I have no idea. That's another reason why I feel like I can't just share with him this knowledge.
Right.
If we had a better relationship, I'd come up and be like, hey, guess what? I have something to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have that kind of relationship.
Right. That's where I was going next, is as you were growing up, did you ever have feelings of, things are not as they seem? Or did you ever find yourself in hindsight looking back on it like, oh, I was close to discovering something that was there, but I wouldn't have any clue to really dig deeper on it?
Yeah, I wonder, looking back, yes, I always felt like I think I was adopted or switched at birth or something. I always honestly felt like there was some big secret being kept from me. Mm-hmm. I really did. I always felt like, oh, there's something being kept from me. But how do you express that as a child,
Right.
And now I'm like, does every child feel like that? I thought maybe every kid feels like that, like they are a misfit or something's not right. But maybe that's not the case. But yeah, I always felt like there was some big secret being kept, and there was, like, I didn't totally belong in this family, and my brother and I were just never really close. Yeah, I would love to talk with him about it. That, like, what was your deal? Because I know what my deal is. I know what my issues are. What are your issues?
And what do you think, with respect to your relationship with your brother, those differences, is it in personality? Is it in interests? Is it in temperament? Is it all the above?
I really don't know. There was one point, years and years ago, I said something to him about, I sent him a birthday card or something, and I wrote in it something like, I don't even remember, something to the effect of like, just mentioning that he hated me so much when we were growing up. Just, kind of like, haha, like, we're grown up now, you can get over that, and I hope we can be close. And he commented, like, he said, oh my gosh, I didn't hate you. I was just an angry child. And I should have pursued that. I don't know why I didn't pursue it in the moment. Like, why were you angry? I honestly don't know why I didn't pursue it, if it wasn't like the right time to ask that question for follow-up. But that's kind of stuck with me. Like, yeah, why was he angry? And now that I know all of this, did he suspect some big secret too? But the funny thing is I was a very nosy child too. I used to snoop all the time. Do kids normally do that? I don't know, but I would snoop all the time. I would like go in closets and look in the back in the corner and see what I could find hidden away. And I found like arrest records from my dad when he was like in his 20s. And I was like, oh my gosh, my dad got arrested. So if there were any documents about being donor conceived to find, I would have found them.
Okay.
So that's why I'm pretty certain that they do not exist.
Right. And it just adds to the level of shock that I'm sure you felt even more. Because, yeah, you probably did look all up and down for those things that just may have not even been there.
I mean, I would snoop for Christmas presents. What kid doesn't do that, right?
Yeah,
So I would snoop for that.
I think we're all guilty of that in some way. So when you think about your relationship with your father who raised you growing up, were there any clear indicators that there was something, I don't know if amiss is the word, but something that wasn't as full of a connection as a biological one would be?
Not so much with him directly. I think with his side of the family, yes. I always, which is interesting because there's a lot of addiction in his family, and I would always be like, I don't have addictive behavior, which is true. I do not have addictive tendencies in my life, and I was always like, this kind of irritates me because I was told, like, when I got to the age of 21 and I was able to start drinking, my mom would be like, be careful, alcoholism runs in your dad's family. Well, that's not something I needed to worry about now, is it?
Right.
So that I feel like, oh, that was a little bit of a lie right there.
Mm-hmm.
But I just never have had really addictive behavior, and I knew that was pretty rampant on his side of the family. So I was always aware of that, but I was just like, that's not part of my makeup. So that was always like, okay, well, I didn't get that gene. And I also thought it was really weird that I had so many recessive genes, and now I'm like, well, that didn't come from him though. So my relationship with my dad is great. I'm definitely a daddy's girl. What really kind of, some more therapy here. So him having 2 children from his first marriage that are definitely biologically his, but he wasn't able to raise them. And then he married my mom and had me and my brother through donor. And he stuck around to raise us who were not biologically his. I feel like my older sisters, who are now not even related to me biologically, as it turns out, that could really hurt them, like, oh, he stuck around to raise these kids who aren't even biologically his and not them. Or they could see it as, well, we're his real children and you're not, so I can see both sides of the coin where one of us or both of us get hurt from this.
Right. Now, you said it was your niece that made that initial discovery.
Yeah, so she's the child from one of the daughters from my dad's first marriage that is biologically his.
Okay.
There's a lot of dots to connect. So she would technically be my half niece, and now she's just not related to me biologically at all, but she's an adult and, so she was interested in, she has her own story about her biological father and stuff. So she wanted to get some answers in that regard. And that's why she did a DNA test.
Got it. What do you think, shifting gears a little bit again, what do you think is most important for people outside of the donor-conceived community to be aware of with respect to the kinds of things that we deal with and, these truths coming to light for us at such a later stage in life?
I mean, I feel like that's a pretty loaded question because there's a lot of messages to convey. First of all, the response. I feel like everybody wants to respond, especially when they find out and they don't really know how to respond. They want to respond and they want to say something, maybe to just make things less awkward, but they don't have to respond. There really doesn't need to be a response, and except for, that's really interesting, share more if you want, tell me more. You don't have to say, well, he's still your mom, or he's still your father, or, she's still your mom in the case of an egg donor, or they're still your family, or, they still love you, or I'm sure you still love them anyway. And all of these platitudes, they don't really help.
Yeah.
I will share, I recently, since having this discovery and going to different doctor's appointments, I'm like, oh, I need to update all my medical information now because,
right. Yep.
Everything I thought applied to me now doesn't, and I want to update this. So I had one doctor kind of ask me oh, I see you updated your medical information today. What's that about? And so I shared with her, I said, well, I found out I'm donor conceived, and it gave me a chance to share with her. Now, I'll be honest, this was my gynecologist. So it gave me a chance to share with her, I'm sure you work with a lot of families going through fertility that, maybe are using donors to conceive. I said, what do you say to them? What do you say to them? She's like, nothing. She said, that's for the fertility doctor to talk to them about. I said, so you never even ask them anything about their child? And she's like, no, I never even thought of it. And I said, well, and I shared with her, this is what I've been going through for the last year. And I've found, I've learned that up until probably 20 years ago, doctors were just giving out the advice of, you don't need to tell your child, it doesn't matter, and they're not going to find out anyway. And no one, I'm sure, even thought, here we are, you spit in a tube and all these secrets come out. And whoever, made these anonymous donations never thought that their identity would be revealed just from someone spitting in a tube.
Mm-hmm.
They had no idea, that's science fiction stuff. But here we are, and now all these secrets are coming out, and it is important. And doctors are kind of changing their advice, and they should be changing their advice to these recipient parents. It does matter, and people are. I hope my message to the next generation of recipient parents is it does matter, and it is important, and it is part of your child's identity. And if you introduce it to them at a young age, just as you would an adopted child, it just becomes another part of their story that they learn to accept and they grow up with. And it's not so traumatizing and shocking to find out, later in life, your whole life has been something that you didn't realize. So anyway, I shared that with her. And she was just like, wow, I never even thought about that. But you know what? From now on, I'm just going to say a word to the recipient parents that they should, or how they can share with their children. And she said she was going to go research some children's books to share with her patients, and she said, "You may have just changed the lives of the next generation of children." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that feels so cool."
Isn't it funny how sometimes we realize how experts don't always really know it all, and that they can easily make changes for the better that can come from anybody,
Yeah.
can come from one of their patients.
Yeah, and that kind of got me set, into wanting to advocate more for more transparency with the recipient parents and children, because I just, even with my own relationship with my mom now, I would love for there to be more communication and transparency, and maybe we'll get there, but that's not the case right now. So can I promote my social media?
Yeah, of course. I had one more question, but let's get the plug in. Go for it.
Oh yeah, let's plug it. So I have started on X, formerly Twitter, a place for that does just that. Advocates for donor-conceived people and aims to educate the next generation of recipient parents to be more transparent. So that can be found on X at DCP Dialogue.
Awesome. I love that.
So, and I want people to share articles and information they find that, helps them and encourages them, and I will do the same.
That's great. The more people speaking up, the better things will be going forward. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
My last question for you, through all of this, the ups and downs, what have you found to be the most helpful for you in terms of how you've dealt with everything?
Just time, I think just like with anything that changes your life and upends, because that's what's really funny. It's like nothing's really changed in my life. Like my relationships are mostly the same, nothing's really changed, but everything's changed. So I think just time. There was definitely a grieving process of grieving what I thought I knew, grieving relationships as they've changed. There's wading through anger. There's wading through denial. I thought, well, maybe my mom's actually lying about this. Maybe she's covering something else up. So, all those stages of grief that you go through, I also went through with this, I think. And also finding community. I had no idea that there's actually, donor support, DCP communities out there that have been so helpful. There's the Reddit group, We Are Donor Conceived. We Are Donor Conceived on Reddit. Always has really good discussions. And then, of course, the Facebook Donor Conceived group has been really great, and probably one of the greatest supports I've found. And I've found myself now being able to give advice and support to other people that in the way I had received it at the beginning too. And I'm sure I will reach out again at some point and be like, okay guys, I need to just vent, and then people will give me their support and advice of how to get through whatever obstacle I reach, in the future. I did want to say also, as far as the donor siblings, we're happy at just our little pod of 4, and we hope that that's it, because a lot of these, or all of the clinics, are supposed to follow certain regulations, but there's nobody that really enforces it, and that's how you end up with dozens and dozens and dozens of donor-conceived children in large pods. But our clinic, I think, was supposed to follow the rule of 3 families, and that's where we're at right now. So we're always, every time I get a notification from 23andMe or Ancestry, I'm like, uh-oh. And so far, knock on wood, nothing yet. So we don't know. You never know, I guess. Here
we are, March 5th. It seems like you've made it past the holiday season of all of the DNA tests that people tend to get around Christmas time, and the results come back, late January, early February. So
I've heard of that happening, but
yeah,
it's like a season. This is the first year I've gone through it also.
It is a seasonal thing. And yeah, in my group, I am still the latest to have joined. which was
wow.
2 years ago. But
Wow.
that's the thing is, any day we could get a notification that says, "Hey, you have another half sibling that's part of the pod now." So,
Wow.
yeah. Any closing thoughts? I know we covered a lot, but is there anything else that you feel the desire to share?
I'm sure I'll think of like a million things afterwards. But right now, no. I think I've said everything that should be said, I hope.
And there you have it. Thank you so much, Shavonne. I appreciate your willingness to bravely share your story with us and wish you nothing but the best. As a reminder, you can find Shavonne on X at DCP Dialogue. Please give her a follow. She's doing a great thing and offering donor-conceived people a new supportive community to be a part of and find helpful information. Also, if you'd like to know more of my own personal story, you can read my book titled Inconceivably Connected, A True Story of Shocking DNA Results and Chasing the Unknown. It's available online on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and just about every other site you can order books from. The production, music, and editing for the Inconceivably Connected podcast were all done by me, your host, Nick Ludwig. And if you're donor conceived and would like to tell your story on the show, please email inconceivablyconnected@gmail.com. Finally, thank you all for listening. We'll be back again with another episode next week with a brand new guest. See you next time.